What's up, Addicts? We're back with another episode of this Arifureta thing. It's episode 1. We reviewed a lot of books. We reviewed some manga, I think. I don't know if on the channel, but...
You've seen me with the trailer reactions building up to this.
We've had a lot of hype building around this episode, and it was definitely different than either of us expected.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to talk about it. This is kind of like an impressions/review too for the episode in general. I guess we can just start with like the opening in general. The weird choice having the like the actual I guess what would you call it, like an intro. I guess it's the OP for like anime, having like the song and everything. It's bold. You don't see that normally too much, but it was like okay, not my type of music, but. Did you like that?
It was okay.
Yeah,
I think it wasn't annoying. It wasn't offensive. But besides that, it was like we watched this. I watched it like 30 minutes ago. And I can't remember what the opening sounded like.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be one that like I'll like after I listen to it a few times, or maybe if I listen to like the full version. But right now, that was just like nothing. That doesn't matter though, too much.
That doesn't matter as much. We'll get into this a lot, but just one more thing. Usually, when the opening's not like fire. It's like for Overlord. Sometimes when you didn't like I didn't like one of the opens. It was like, but the animation is cool.
Yeah.
But like for this OP, the animation didn't blow me away. Which we can probably bridge into a bigger topic about the animation. But we should talk first about how they decided to kind of the plot of this episode.
Yeah, the structuring of this episode it's baffling to me, really, because I don't know how somebody kept their job from suggesting they go this approach. Purple. Gosh. But yeah, I guess that's the central part of the episode. This fault is just the way they decided to tackle the whole story. It's very choppy. It starts off all right. I mean, the opening, having the opening in there, it drags on really long, so it shows a lot of things, which is kind of like an odd choice for, obviously fans that don't know the series. But you get to see his, like, this is spoilers for the book, by the way, but like the prologue,
for the book that you should read anyway.
Yeah, that's the book's better. But in the book they have the prologue where he's like talking as he's like descending, and then it flashes back to kind of show you, and it like retells you more in a linear standpoint, I would say, of like, oh, how did they get in this world? Like how does the world work? What's kind of like the motivation of the character? What's like his, what makes him him and unique to the story? And it just doesn't deliver that at all.
Yeah, so we were talking about this when we were watching the episode, because, we had some ads in between, and just it wasn't that great that it drew
I watched it twice, by the way.
Yeah.
So this isn't just like me spouting off after seeing it once. No, I watched an hour
it twice
long.
But yeah, I think a big part of Arifureta, regardless of how you feel about the later series, which kind of we have some divergence there, but I think the beginning is really great because it establishes why he is like a jerk to everyone else in the world, and it also establishes his character traits of being. He does change, at least in the light novel. You can see it in the anime a little bit, but he was always calculating. He always he always made good decisions. He knew what he was doing. He was working with what he had, and then
he was ingenious and pretty good at tacticianing it.
Yeah, and like that was like a major point. And then you got to see like what he was thinking. And how I was thinking in the beginning. None of that stuff is in there. So, like, if you're an anime-only watcher, I really don't know why you would like Hajime at this point.
Yeah, taking what we know of the series out of it, like, there's nothing that really makes you feel anything for him in this. Even some of, like, the side characters, like, you don't see them really at all. Like, I mean, you see maybe flashes of them, but you don't get to know any of them. I don't even know if you would know any of their names outside of when he like directly calls to like Kalki to like thank him, or like Kaori when they're like like when she's shouting for him, and then everybody else is like, no, Kaori.
So
like,
I think
that's a big drop as well.
So I think one of the major faults of just kind of pacing is probably the best way to say it. I think they focused on getting more material out and getting to the quote-unquote exciting action parts of the series, where if they spent 2 or 3 episodes establishing the character, then you'd actually care about what is going to happen later on. Yeah. Like, how are those fights... Even the first fight, which is kind of a spoiler, but there's a first and a second fight against a bear, and it's like it had so much weight in the light novel where you're like, wow, it had anticipation to it. And in this one, it was like, well, I mean, I saw that like a minute ago, so
yeah,
I'm not really.
Well, and I think it also is too that the way it tries to come or like represent like what he's going through doesn't really land. Like in the book, especially like in the light novel, when it's like, you know, he's sitting there kind of like talking to himself because he's just all alone. You know, you really get to see a good painting of like his despair and like how long he's actually there and like how much that takes a toll on him. And in this, like, you know, probably because of the pacing and also just because like it doesn't really show you him struggling that much. I mean, it does, but not like the way it needs to. And that just doesn't give it like any, you know, positive notes. Maybe episode 2 they'll spend more time on it.
They could redeem that, but there is one thing they can't redeem, and that's the bad CGI in this episode. So the main character and like his gun that you get to see, those look pretty cool, I think.
They do. I think the sound quality for the gun was a little bit better than what I heard it in the trailer too. So that a little bit of a plus.
So one thing which we mentioned earlier, the lightning is purple. It's not red. Even though he calls it red in the trailer, I think someone's gonna get fired because they must have like not changed the color.
Yeah, because it's like in like the second or third PV trailer, they changed the color to red, but then like in this first episode, it's purple the whole time, and like he even makes mentioning of it being red or turning red. And there's also another consistency in like terms of like dog and when you see, because like when the bear, like in the book, it actually bites his arm off if I recall. Right, but in the show, like he just uses like the Gale Claw to like send something after and cut it off, and then like later on when Hajime's talking about it, he's just like, "Oh yeah, the bear bit off my arm." It's like that's not what we saw. I remember because it was like 2 seconds ago.
And then there were some inconsistencies with the attack patterns of the bear as well. But so I mean, there are some good elements. So like the gun, his main character, and the action scenes weren't too bad. It did do the thing, which maybe it's just because I'm like a veteran anime watcher or something, and maybe it doesn't annoy some people, but I don't like the middle of a fight, he gets thrown away, and then like the animation quality goes down because he's further away, and you're not supposed to like focus on him.
Well, and it had strange music.
It did have a really weird music
right there for just no reason.
Yeah, that was a weird choice. But the biggest problem with the animation is you get to see a large creature in here, and they actually don't. At least I feel like in Overlord when they had bad CGI, they just like glossed over it. But in this one, it was like, oh, we're giving this guy like 2 scenes for you to see this monster, like close up. And I was like, oof.
Yeah. I did say in my trailer reaction that I'm okay with like, you know, not as great of animation because it's like, you know, it's trying to prove itself because it's like the first show and I don't know how popular it really is in terms of like, you know,
I don't know
being in Japan and then like what they were projecting it to do overseas. But it is a lot worse than some of even like the lower budget shows that I see. And I thought they had improved a lot of it in the trailers that we saw, but in this final product, I didn't really see that polish really come to fruition. You know, and there's a lot of stuff story-wise that I think is just, I don't know, it like, there's just so much that I wrote it down, but I'm not going to try to like go over anything because that would just be, you know, kind of boring for you guys to listen to. But like one thing that I think is kind of important is, you know, they tried to establish that Kaori's got some sort of connection to him, right? And even in the book, you don't really figure out to the extent of what that is until later on. But in the, you know, in the book, you can clearly see that it's like a really strong emotion for her. And like when Hajime falls into the abyss, like she literally has to have like 5 people hold her back because of like how much like her like emotions are just like running off the railroad. But and I think even in like the trailer we saw, like the last one I did, you can see the scene, like they animated that, like there's a scene where like Kalki's like holding her back as along with like Shizuku, but like in the actual episode, like it's just like Shizuku and it's like a light hold and like Kaori doesn't try to break away. And I thought that was like a really weird thing to have when her devotion to Hajime is like such a big thing for her character. So that's like, I mean, that's just, I'm just, you know, expanding apart one of the things I saw, but there's a lot of those that like I saw and I was just like shaking my head at, really.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of problems that I wasn't as hyped as Josh was, probably because I have like mixed feelings about the series in general. But it definitely did disappoint me.
Read it for a while.
Yeah, it definitely did disappoint me a little bit. But I would say it's salvageable. I think the difference between this and something like Goblin Slayer, which people like that show, but anyway, between this and Goblin Slayer, the Goblin Slayer, in my point of view, had a mediocre to decent plot arc and main character. So it did kind of get old. I feel like as long as they nail Hajime, and maybe if they have the second episode to spend a lot of time in the dungeon and don't skip over straight to, the end of this dungeon, that maybe they'll be able to redeem themselves a little bit. I feel like there was... So if they can do that, then it's okay, and I'll continue watching the show. I probably will continue to review it anyway, but it definitely was a disappointment, and I hope they change some things. There's another thing that I don't want to be too negative, but they definitely had an opportunity to have, like, in the book, it's like clearly a montage of him like killing one type of creature, and then killing another type of creature, and then like advancing in the plot. And this one, it's like that would have been a perfect opportunity for like a cool montage. But it felt like they were like, we don't really want to have the budget for that, or we don't want to do that, so they just didn't. And I feel like it was too abrupt of a change from him, because that's like the big... Like I said, I think a lot of it boils down to not deciding to split this into 2 or 3 episodes and to not take the time to develop. But that's like the one transformation in this series that he has as a person. I mean, there's some minor ones, but that he has a personality-wise, that affects the full duration of the show. So if you're not going to take the time to establish who he was before and who he was after, why would I care about the character as much?
Yeah, because that's like the whole point of like his character, is that the initial change and then like him making up his mind. I will say there is one point that I actually do like a lot, and that's mainly because I think it's like the first hint of like actually seeing like what Hajime is as a character in the show, and that is like when he's describing how like he's kind of going in his mind like who betrayed me, and then it's like it transitions a little bit to like, oh fuck all those people, and then it transitions again, you're like, yeah, you know what, ultimately it doesn't matter. And then he's like, I'm just going to focus on getting out here, getting home, and I'm going to kill everything in my past. There's like a little, I mean, it doesn't go to that extent, but like, you see a snippet of that in like the middle part of the episode, and that's when I was like, okay, need more of that, Like, it would have been nice to see the beginning part too, but yeah, they just kind of dropped the ball a bit, but I'm still like I'm still invested because I like the series, and I think they can turn it around. That's just the first episode. It's just kind of a bummer because I think the beginning of the series is just like, it's one of the best parts of the series, is like the beginning of it.
Yeah, so we'll continue doing our episode by episode. We really want you guys to comment, especially those who maybe haven't read that much of the light novels, and those who have, see if you kind of agree with us. Because we kind of reached an agreement, at least, that this episode definitely was a disappointment. So I want to see how people view view this episode.
Hopefully it didn't sound too negatively. I mean, it's definitely a disappointment, but I just hope keep with it. And look, we're gonna have Danmachi come out here pretty soon, and we're gonna be reviewing that. So even if this is endless pit of depression, we have Danmachi to tide us over. They put me in an abyss,
and I know a lot of people here, have came for Arifureta. So we'll keep at it, and regardless of if this series is a success or not, it'll still be a part of our channel, so you don't have to worry about that.
I am just curious if other fans of the show were as disappointed as like we were, or if they were like okay with it, because I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'm just like more picky about stuff I really like, or if it's just that people are willing to overlook some things. But I'm curious to know. I'm honestly curious to see how many people are watching this right now, or people that have never read any of the book, never even seen it before, and are intrigued to see more. Because I, just as and the show watcher only, I'm curious if it was able to convey enough of what the story is and like what's going on to pique their interest, Because for me, I don't know if it would have if I hadn't seen the series before.
Yeah, and I'm also curious, this is a bigger issue that I won't go fully into, but I'm also curious what the target audience of the show was, because I feel like a lot of some of the issues that I have with the show is like, well, I'm just not the target audience. It's for like 14-year-old boys who like action.
Yeah, probably.
So if that's the case, then maybe there are people who really liked it. I mean, there's people who like eyes out there, so what can you do?
Now, the really other thing I want to know is, since they basically got through, what would you say, probably half maybe of the first volume of the light novel, maybe almost, maybe like a third.
They
at
took
least.
half at one page here and there.
Yeah, they took like a third at least, maybe half even. I'm curious to know now because like a lot of people were thinking, volume 3 is where they're going to end it probably. But now seeing the pacing of the first episode, it's like if they keep that up, like are they going to try to get to like volume 4 of the light novel? That'd be
a lot of material.
Yeah, that's so crazy. But I guess we shouldn't drag on too long because it's kind of like a venting one for this first episode, which is not good. But hey, if all of the negatives are in this first episode, but the rest of the season's good, then it's still going to be probably a success.
There's hope.
Yeah, there's hope, and we'll be back. So be sure to check us back for next week when we do episode 2. If you are a fan of Danmachi or AKA Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, you should check back with us because we do a lot of stuff with that, and we're going to do the second season of that.
Yeah.
Which you'll probably be here now.
I probably will be here, yeah.
But anyway, guys, I guess I'll conclude this, and we'll see you guys next time.
Later.
Peace.